We're almost at the end of a great Kmmersion. Last night was the 7 hours last night, 8 hours for some other people, were worth the entire price of entry. They were great. So I have a talk today that's a really, really special conversation. It's about leadership and ego. And ego is something that's with us every day. It'll be with us the day we die. It's something we battle to make ourselves better. So we're going to have a talk about what it is, how do we identify it, and how do we deal with it in life. Our focus, our mission is collective success in a lot of things. But the three primary things are family, our relationships with our kids, right? Or our spouses, our significant others, and business. So collective success is the we and then the me. That's what we're talking about today. We're data people, right? So data, we go back to a book by Jim Collins, Good to Great. They looked at thousands of companies over 3 decades. They measured stock market performance, and they identified the companies that outperformed by 300 to 400% over an extended period of time. They identified 11 companies. The one core principle that they identified was what they called level 5 leadership. Shale and I read this book a number of years ago. And when we read that book, we said, wow, that level 5 leadership, it's Manny Arturi. It was categorized by 2 things. It was tenacious personal will, and it was also extreme humility, extreme personal humility. It's a balance, right? So ego's with us every day. Our definition of ego is I, me. We really think of it in bad terms, right? An egotist is not something we aspire to be. So it's the balance, right? But ego is something that we all need. It's really important for us, right? Because there are certain aspects of confidence, of self-esteem that we need. The problem is when it gets to be too much and it becomes a liability. So we're going to look at assets and liabilities of ego. So what's the impact on business to ego? Great book, 2007, Egonomics. Really good book. 61% of people that were polled felt that ego negatively impacted their business on a daily basis. Another 34% felt that ego negatively impacted their business on a weekly basis. Wow. Right? On a weekly basis. Almost everybody identified that ego negatively impacts their business. Ohio State did a study that of businesses that failed, 1/3 of the businesses that failed attributed the failure directly to ego. Directly to ego. Underestimating risks, investing in things that you shouldn't because it was your decision. John Corzine, who was a senior exec at Goldman Sachs, went on to be a governor. MF Global had been in business for decades. He came in close to a year, they filed for bankruptcy. Right? An overly aggressive bet on European sovereign debt, and he torpedoed the company. And then, of course, all the things that followed to try and find everybody's money. Ego, absolutely ego. An auction, this was a study that was done by Carnegie Mellon, and it was meant to highlight the effects of an ego. So they did an auction. So they had an ego group, a high ego group, and they had a normal ego group. And they fired up the high ego group with questions and comments to, inflame their egos. They overpaid by 3.7%. 3.7% to the normal ego group. That was the cost, if you will. 3.7 times percent for the high ego group. Let's look at some of the common traits. And once again, these things they can be good, they can be assets, or they can be liabilities. Self-confidence, absolutely important, right? We get successful in life, it gives us more confidence. But there comes a point where we move self-confidence into being self-absorbed that we don't seek other people's opinions because we think we're really good. Why do I need to ask so-and-so? I got it covered, okay? And also people can see it when we're me first and then we. They can totally read the I people, right? And it's hard to follow somebody who's very self-absorbed. Really hard to do that. Optimistic, my own personal issue that I deal with, right? I have a tendency to be very optimistic. So it helps, right? Because in challenging times, optimism gets us through it. And for those of us that embrace it, we realize that life is a struggle on purpose. We're meant to be challenged. Obstacles are going to happen. We expect them, but we also know we're going to grow from them, and we're going to get better in our evolution through life because stuff gets thrown at us. Thank God it does. If we win every game 59-0, life is pretty dull. So it's dealing with those challenges that we appreciate. But then we can also become unrealistic. We can ignore warning signals that we should pick up, and we lose a level of discernment. So that's optimism. Assertive. Most of our leaders are really assertive. You need to be. You got to push things through. But then there's the time when you become assertive and when you become pushy, and people get annoyed and they don't want to really be pushed. So it's a balance. And then analytical. We have a lot of great analytical people here. This is one of the things that clients pay a lot of money for us to do, right? To analyze, find holes in things. Shale always has a beautiful term. It's called bulletproofing. We do it on purpose. We have a candidate solution architecture or an idea. We want to bulletproof it. We want to analyze it. We want to shoot holes in it. But there also becomes the balance when we become pessimistic and good ideas and good candidate architectures get shot down because we get overly pessimistic. So once again, it's a balance. And then smart. Really smart people here. And the liability of this trait is that we think we know it all. And when we know it all, we don't need to ask other people's ideas, right? When we think we know it all, we don't have to ask other people's opinions, right? Shale's a smart guy, right? He usually does know most of the answers, but he at least indulges me with a question every now and then so we can, bat things around, right? But it's something that's we all got to be careful of. Okay, so those are some traits. These are some traps, if you will, that I think we all fall into. I do. We all do. Once again, we got to battle this every day for the rest of our life, right? Being comparative. It's just a natural tendency of comparing ourselves of how am I doing versus somebody else. Tom, how am I doing versus Sean? Program management, architects, everybody here, we compare ourselves to other people. Henry Ford had a beautiful quote. He said, the competitor I fear is the one who doesn't care about me, right? We're running our own race in life, right? So we don't need to compare ourselves. We have our own game. Defensiveness. This is a question of, are we defending our idea or are we defending ourselves, right? It's a big difference. Are we defending our idea or because somebody criticizes or maybe says, well, what about this? We all of a sudden sit back and say, wow, they're criticizing me. No. If it's a we first mentality, we care about the best answer. I want somebody to criticize me or question me or say, well, maybe this as opposed to that. We want it, okay? That's the challenge with defensiveness. We fall into the trap of they're challenging me and they're not challenging my idea. All the time. We love to think we're really, really smart. All the time. So we're in front of a client and we think that, man, I am going to be the smartest person in this room. And because I'm the smartest person in this room and I work for Knowledgent, they are therefore going to think I'm really smart, right? What happens when we're showcasing our brilliance is we're doing most of the talking. The clients that we've spoken to, the client feedback is that the best meetings are based on the questions and the dialogue. When we're showcasing our brilliance, we don't get the opportunity to do that. Questions, right? It takes a lot of effort to actually develop good questions. And we know we have a good question when a client actually has to pause and think about it. That's when we internally, mentally clap to ourselves saying, yeah, it's taken them a couple of seconds and they have to think about that question. That's when we know we're winning. Einstein had a beautiful quote. He said, we must take special care to not make brilliance our God, because brilliance has powerful muscles, but it cannot lead. It can only follow. It's a beautiful quote. He was a smart guy. Okay. This is an absolute trap, right? We all need self-respect. We all want to feel accepted, right? But we're in meetings, right? Client meetings, our own internal meetings. The challenge is we seek group harmony. We want other people to agree with us. We seek group harmony. And the problem with group harmony is it's tough to make bold decisions when you're trying to have group harmony. So seeking acceptance is another one. So let's talk a little bit about, let's go outside of the business circle. Let's talk about marriage and relationships, right? Something that are very important to all of us, right? Families, wives, spouses, significant others, but our life, right? So John and Julie Gottman have been working for 30 years. They teach out of the University of Washington, and they have a marriage retreat that they run out of Seattle. They can predict in 5 minutes with 91% accuracy the success of that relationship. 91% accuracy in 5 minutes. They measure expressions, the dialogue, blood pressure, stress levels, your pulse. 91% accuracy in 5 minutes. They highlight 3 things: stonewalling, criticism, and defensiveness. Those are the 3 traits that lead to torpedoing relationships. Very similar traits that we're talking about from the ego standpoint. They're transferable and very applicable to relationships, to marriage, to our kids. Competition. When is competition fuel? And when does competition combust, right? When does it propel us? When does it blow us up? So Usain Bolt, right? So sprinting, very individual sport, high ego, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best. Basketball, team sport, like ours. So Michael Jordan, obviously we know who he is. A lot of scoring titles early in his career. When he purposely gave up the scoring titles and the push for scoring titles, his team won 6 championships, the most of all time. Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant, on the other hand, had won championships together. But there was only room for one ego in Los Angeles, and that turned out to be Kobe's ego. Never won another championship after that. We all know Wilt Chamberlain was a great player. 13 individual scoring titles. He won 1 championship. Greatest player of all time is Michael Jordan. It's not Wilt Chamberlain, and it's not Kobe Bryant. And our attitude about Michael Jordan would be different if he won 13 scoring titles and he only won 1 title. He may not be the greatest. So what is the answer? How do we manage our ego, okay? How do we manage our ego? We do it through humility, okay? Humility is not weakness by any chance. It's actually really hard to be, to practice humility, right? Because you got to let other people get credit. You have to take a back seat. It's we, then me. Shell mentioned a beautiful quote yesterday, which is that humility is not that people think less of themselves. They just think of themselves less. And Ken Blanchard had in his book, he calls it intelligent self-respect. Intelligent self-respect. Ken Blanchard, he wrote, 1 Minute Manager and 50 business books. He actually has a leadership academy that is modeled after the 12 principles of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's an ego anonymous. So people will come in and they'll say, hello, my name is Dave, I'm an egomaniac. And they'll tell a story about here's how ego got in the way of my life. 83% of people that were polled, leaders, wanted to have more humility. 83% of leaders wanted more humility in how they carried on their day-to-day life, okay? So Jack Welch, this is in a Fast Company article a few years ago, was asked, when did you know that Jeff Immelt was going to be a good CEO? When did you know that he was going to be a good CEO? How he was going to be your choice? Because at GE, they don't migrate CEOs that often. It's a big process, thorough process to go through picking one. So he went back to a meeting in 1994, and it was an offsite, a year-end offsite, and it was a leadership meeting. So Jeff Immelt was running GE Plastics at the time, which is the same one that Welch ran before he became CEO. And Immelt missed his numbers badly. He was supposed to deliver 20% income growth. He delivered 7. It was the worst performance of any of the people in the room. At the end of the meeting, Jack Welch put his hand on Jeff Immelt's shoulder and he said, hey, Jeff, I just want to let you know, if you can't turn this thing around, if you can't get it done, I'm going to have to move you out. And he said, Jack, you'll never have to do that. If I can't turn this thing around, if I can't make it happen, I'll take myself out. That was the moment. He said, that's typical Jeff. That was the moment that he knew that Jeff Immelt was going to be a great CEO because it was we, then me. Company first. Curiosity. This is a beautiful trait. Nobody practices it better than Shale Jane. He is naturally curious. He's asking questions all the time, right? I mean, how many 360s and 180s? And you come in, well, what about A or what about B? Shale comes up with C. So there's a beautiful curiosity, right? He's innately curious. Others of us are curious because we're asked questions in meetings. So very few of us are just naturally curious. Scott Lee, I'm not sure if he's still here. Scott Lee is the naturally curious guy. He's always asking questions. So the beauty about the curiosity is it creates questions, right? We can learn on our own. We can learn in school. We can learn watching videos, the MOOCs. We all have those. We really learn from other people. The only way we learn from other people is when we ask them questions, when we really care about learning. How many of us know the answer to something, and we can't wait to give the answer? Well, guess what? Ask a question first, because your answer might become better because somebody else just gave you input that makes your answer a better answer or an idea or a thought or anything. So veracity. Veracity is a never-ending search for the truth, right? And we have a saying that we always use, do what's right by the business 10 times out of 10, right? In life, we're always going to do what's right for our kids 10 times out of 10, right? Do what's right for our spouse, right? So that never-ending search for the truth. It's a duality is the actual secret here. And the duality is, I am smart, but I am not the smartest. I am talented, but so are others. It's okay to have an ego and to have confidence, but not to let it get in the way of what we do, right? So we need to develop our own little referee system, okay? So this is a referee system, so when we're on the field, we can throw our own flags at ourselves, and we can have others that throw flags at us when we pick it up, okay? So these are some things, some natural things that happen all the time. We use the word I as opposed to we. Are we feeding our ego with what we're saying? Our declarative statement, we're saying I. Are we feeding our ego or not? A lot of cases we are. It should be a little red flag or a little, yellow flag that we throw that basically says, I just said I. Did I really need to say that? Could I have said we? Using right as a verbal crutch. We're in meetings, right? We're seeking group harmony, right? We're seeking acceptance. Well, what'd you think about my idea, right? How do you think about this, right? What do you think about this, right? What are we doing? We're seeking group acceptance. We want group harmony, okay? And that gets in the way of bold decisions. How do we feel when others are recognized performance? How do we feel? We happy for them? We're a little disappointed for ourselves. Do we use this as a little fuel maybe next time so that I'm going to, I'm really happy for that person. I'm going to be the best next time. I'm going to get recognized in that award. Is it we then me or is it me then we, right? And how do we feel when somebody challenges our idea? How do we feel? Are we defensive? Are we defending our idea because we really think our idea is the best? Or are we defending ourselves because we feel it's an attack on your identity, right? And then are we giving advice without asking questions first? It's the point I made earlier. We may know the answer, but guess what? My answer will get better if I ask Tom Johnstone. My answer always gets better when I ask Shale, which is why I always ask him, right? But we have smart people, so we might as well ask him. So I want to finish with this slide, and there's a couple of purposes to this slide. First is that leadership is for all of us. It's not for Tom, and it's not for Sean. It's for all of us. We all have leadership opportunities in business, and you can never have enough coaches on the field. Never. Client meetings, our own meetings, you can never have enough coaches on the field. We chose a number of photos of some of our younger, folks. So if you're not on there, it's either because you're old, or if you're younger, it's just because we couldn't fit your name. We couldn't put your picture on the, on this slide. But so lots of opportunities for all of us to be leaders, not just the leaders that we think of. And these are a number of ways that we can all lead. There's a lot of great stuff on the coaching corner, by the way. And this is some stuff that was done by some professors from Duke that identified the dimensions, if you will, of leadership. So we all think of leaders as, Gandhi or Mandela, those inspirational, lifetime impact, really once-in-a-lifetime impact leaders. But we all have an opportunity to do all these things, right? Inspirational leadership, which is what, we put together when we said we're saving lives and improving businesses through data. Great. Contextual leadership. Let's set a leadership context aspirational for our projects, okay? We're going to lead our clients so they're going to be the best in wealth management, the best in R&D. We're going to establish Knowledgent as the leader in this area. We're going to own this client because we're going to exceed expectations and we're going to deliver really well. Personal leadership, relational leadership, responsible leadership, supportive leadership to our team. I raise my hand to deliver something, I deliver. Okay, I'm finished, I got my stuff done, let me go help my teammate. Supportive leadership. So all these ways are ways that we can contribute. I would ask all of us to analyze these dimensions and look at ourselves and say, how can I practice a leadership principle at work? All leaders can get better at leadership, and all people can be leaders. We just got to look at the different ways that we can lead. So finally, humility, the curiosity, and the veracity all make us better as people, and they make us better in business, right? As long as we come to grips and admit that we're smart, but we're not the smartest. We're talented, but so are others. And we are not the greatest, but our teammates and our company is. That's it. Thank you.